Today I'm going to be doing ribs, doing the 3-2-1 method, which I will explain as I go. I will walk you through how I like to cut them, remove the membrane, what I like to season them with, and what wood I'm going to be using today. So stick around and you'll have some delicious ribs at the end. So for the wood I'm going to be using, I have a mix of maple, apple, and cherry wood. Now I couldn't go to the store and get some chips, so on my property I have maple trees, apple trees, and cherry trees. I've read stuff back and forth, you're not supposed to use wet wood for like fresh wood for smoking, but since I'm using propane as my heat source and I'm only really using these to flavor it, I found it's fine. I think the reason for not using wet wood as your heat source is you get a lot of creosote and stuff like that, and it can make the meat taste funny. So I'll get these are the same packs I used for the other video, just reusing them. I'm gonna get them set up on my grill, and away we go. So for the temperature I'm gonna set the grill at, I wanna keep it around 225 to 250. So that'll cook it low and slow. So in that first 3 hours that you cook them, that's what the 3 is for in the 3-2-1 method. The first 3 hours, basically you're absorbing the flavors into the meat. So you're getting the smoke flavor into it, you're getting all the juices are rendering down, the fat's rendering down, soaking into the meat and cooking it, but they're still not gonna be tender. So that's where the 2 comes in. So you wrap them in foil and turn the heat up a little bit, and then leave them in the foil for 2 hours. And then you open them, and I'll show you what happens after you do that later in the video. But that is what tenders them. So you're basically steaming them to make them tender. Or not steaming them, broiling them to make them tender. And then the 1 is you unwrap them, put them back on the grill, and then sauce them. So you put a layer of sauce on, leave it there for about 15 minutes, flip it over, sauce that side, 15 minutes, flip it over again, sauce that side, 15 minutes, and then that's what you do for the last hour. And that sets the sauce, makes them sticky, makes them good, and then you just let them sit and rest for a little while after. All right, so first thing I like to do is trim them. This one's smaller, so it's already trimmed pretty good, but this one here, if you flip it over, you can kind of see the last rib is right here, and it has this big piece, which is just gonna burn and not be that great. So what I like to do is, even this piece here, I like to trim it off and then just find the last rib. See how it runs like that. So just go over a little bit from it and trim it off. So you can fry this piece up in a frying pan or whatever and it'd still be good to eat, but it just doesn't work that great on the barbecue. So taking the membrane off can be a little tricky because it's kind of slippery, but once you get it started like this, you just take a paper towel, grab it, and it should just peel right off in mostly one piece. If there's a little bit left on, you can work at it and try to get it off, but that little piece really isn't gonna do anything. But if you want to, you can just get it off like that. And once it comes, it just comes right off. So there's one rack, ready to go. On to the next step, to be seasoned. All right, so both of them are trimmed up and the membrane's removed on the backs. So now it's time to season them to go on the grill. Now, I'm gonna try using mustard for a binder. Some people say you can use olive oil, you can use whatever, but a lot of people use mustard. So I'm gonna give it a try this time and see how it turns out. So you're supposed to not be able to taste the mustard, but that just helps all the spices and stuff stick to it, and you'll get like a nice crust of spices on it. So you don't need a ton. Just a little bit on here. Take something and just spread it around. You can use your hands, you can use a basting brush. I'm just using a spoon, and that will get it all over as best you need it. Get it all in there, all over the ends, and that'll just help everything bind in there and stick. So what I like to season with is I like to start off with some brown sugar. Just get that on them first. You don't need a ton, just enough to give it a little bit of sweet. You can always add more later when you wrap them if you want it. You want them a little sweeter. So I start with brown sugar on them, and then some black pepper. It's a little windy, so it's kind of blowing it all over the place. Seasoned salt. If you're not using seasoned salt or something with salt in it, you want to put salt on them because that'll help draw the moisture out and help the flavors to soak in to the meat. So sprinkle them with some seasoned salt, garlic powder, and then I like a little bit of spice, so I'm going to put this rub on one of the racks. I just got to remember which one once they're all cooked. So once that's on, just kind of pat it in. You don't need to rub it in, but just like pat it so it'll make a nice, it won't fall off as easy when you flip them over. So once that's done to one side, you flip them over and do the same thing on the other. So I got the spices that I put on them. I don't put a ton of spice on them. You can put as much or as little as you want. So now they need to sit and rest. And what resting does is the salt in the seasoned salt gets down into the meat, makes it sweat, and then it absorbs the flavors from everything else. So I'll let them sit until we got some smoke coming out of our barbecue, and then we'll throw them on and start the timer. All right, welcome back. So the grill's up to temp, and we've got some smoke coming out now from our wood. So it is time to put the ribs on. So when you put them on, the way you leave them is the way they're gonna cook. So you kind of want to squish them together, and that will give you more defined, it'll more define where the bones are and help you cut them easier later. So we'll put them on. Give it a little squish, bunch them up a little bit, close the lid, and we will check on them in an hour. My grill, I know, has some hot spots, so I have to check them every hour and move them around just to keep them from burning in one spot. So we'll set a timer, leave them for an hour, come back and have a look at them. All right, we're coming up on the end of our first hour here. Had a couple issues with flame ups on my wood chips, so you gotta kind of watch it and add chips every probably like 20 minutes as they burn. If you notice the smoke stop, it stops. It either means you're out of chips or they caught on fire because they got a little too hot. So I just sprayed them with water, cooled them back down, and put out the fire. And yeah, so we're at the end of our first hour. As you can see, they're on fire again. So I just gave them a little spray and that cooled them back down. But you can see the fat starting to render. It's dripping out. So, and they got a nice color to them. The rub is set on them pretty good. So up here I have hot spots, so I have to take them and I turn them every hour. Turn them like that. Turn this one too. Give the flames a spray. I don't usually have any issues with that, but this time for some reason I am. And so we set them back down and let them go for another hour. Now after the first hour, they probably had enough smoke to get some smoke flavor into them, so I'm not gonna add any more wood chips. Once those ones are gone, it should be fine. So we'll see you again in another hour. Welcome back. We're at the end of our second hour, and it's time to turn them again. And you can see the fat in them is just melting and coming out of them. So that fat is gonna render down and make the ribs nice and moist and juicy. And we're getting a nice bark on them. So we're gonna spin them, and then we're gonna let them go for another hour, and then it's time to wrap them. So we'll just give them a quick spin, just so they don't get burnt in any areas. Put them down and let them go for another hour. After that hour, I'll put them back on the table and show you how to wrap them and put them back on. All right, welcome back. So we're at the end of the first step to making the ribs, and we're using the 3-2-1 method. So the three, they've been on here for almost 3 hours. They're starting to get a little, they're starting to get done where I want them. The ribs will bend. Everything's looking good, so I'm gonna pull them off a little sooner. So now I'm gonna show you how to wrap them. I'm just gonna grab one rack of ribs. I got my tin foil laid out here. So I'll grab one rack, lay it on the foil. So you get these little burnt pieces of blood and stuff like that. I like to pick them off. This helps them look a little nicer. You can see how the meat here, you can see how the meat here is starting to pull away from the bone, like shrink. So that means the moisture is coming out of it. So these ribs are fully cooked. They're up to temperature. So that is what the first part of the 3-2-1 is doing, basically, is getting the smoke in it and getting the ribs cooked. So now we're starting the second step, which is you wrap them, and I like to put some sort of, well, you gotta put some sort of liquid in them. I like to use apple juice, but you can use apple cider vinegar, you can use whatever you want. Something acidic will help break down the fibers in the meat and steam them and make them tender. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. I like to make like a tin foil boat out of it, so then stuff doesn't run off. And I always put some butter on it, because butter makes things better. So I like to put some butter on the ribs, some more brown sugar, and then you can pretty much wrap them in whatever you want. You can put some barbecue sauce in, you can put honey in. I've used maple syrup. Pretty much anything that you want to wrap them in, you can put them, or you can put in them. So I'll do that. I'll do a little more seasoned salt, just to give it a little more, get a little more flavor in it. So, and then to keep the apple juice in, I always fold that, bring the ends up a little bit so the juice runs back in. So now you got like a little pocket, and you can put a little bit more in the bottom if you want. It just helps them steam a little better, and you get a little more flavor out of it. Now this tin foil is kind of small, so I can't really wrap it all. I didn't get the long stuff. I just got the regular stuff that they had. So either way, you have to double wrap them, so then the bones don't stick out. So then I just take another piece, like that, push it down a bit, and then tuck it under. Spin it around. Do the other way. And then there, it's all sealed up. Now we'll do that to the other rack and put them back on the grill for another 2 hours like this, roughly. And then it's time to unwrap them and we'll see what we got. All right, so we are back. We're closing in on hour 5 of the cooking of the ribs. It's kind of a long cook, but it is well worth it in the end. So I took them off the grill, unwrapped them, and this is what I'm looking for here. See, it's peeling back from the bone. You can take a bone, and you can wiggle it a little bit. It's starting to separate. So all the fats, all the meat, everything has rendered down, and these things are gonna be good. So now, you take them out of the foil, lay them upside down at first, put a coat of sauce on them, let them sit on here for about 15 minutes, and then flip them over, and then sauce that side, let them sit for 15 minutes, and then put another coating of sauce on them. You can use any barbecue sauce you want. We like to use hickory and brown sugar, Sweet Baby Ray's. And yeah, after you sauce them a couple of times, get a couple layers built up. See, when you sauce them and let them sit on the grill, it stiffens up the sauce, so it evaporates some of the moisture out of the sauce and makes it stick onto the rib better. So we'll get these back on, sauce them up, and we're gonna be good to go. So we got sauce this side. I don't really like to put a lot of sauce on the back because you get most of it on the top of the rib as far as I'm concerned. So I still want to get a little bit of sauce on here. Still adds some flavor, still does something for them, but I'm more concerned about the other side. Alright, so the ribs have been on and the sauce is all set. So now it is time to cut them up. So you gotta find the bones. They run on an angle on this one. So we're gonna go right in here. These are super tender. There's one. There's another one. These are just gonna fall right apart. So yeah, that's how they look, nice and juicy. I got a little bit of a smoke ring there from the wood chips earlier. So a little bit of a longer cook, between 5 and 6 hours, but once you taste them, you'll never want to do ribs any other way.